Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. We begin with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island, and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. Members of council, any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none, an adoption of our minutes from the Water Wastewater Committee meeting held October 28th, 2025. Moved by Councilor Richo Spagnuolo, support by Councilor Burns. All in favor? That carries. We'll go into our items for consideration. Item 1, LaSalle Water Distribution System Summary Report for 2025, and it's our Manager of Water and Wastewater, Ms. Petros.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this meeting tonight. So this report is the annual distribution summary report that I usually present before the end of March. It's a requirement from the MECP as part of Schedule 22 from Regulation 170. This report goes through the operational review of 2025, and from sampling to any other treatment equipment, which in this case, schedule number 1 treatment equipment, we receive our water fully treated from Windsor. Schedule 6, that is operational checks, which is sampling and testing. This section was fully completed and complied with in 2025. Schedule 7, operational checks. This is speaks more to chlorine residuals, the frequency and the number of chlorine residuals that we are obligated to complete. We just switched 2 years ago from either doing daily samples into it's 4 and 3. So right now we sample for chlorine residuals on Mondays, or if it's a long weekend, then we do it on a Tuesday. We do 4 samples, and then 48 hours, no less than 48 hours later, then we have to take the other 3 samples. In order to have it less confusing, so we kind of switched it to 4 and 4. So we do more than what's required, and so we do it on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. This way to satisfy that minimum 7 samples a week. And the regulation states you have 2 ways of doing it, either daily or you can do it 2 days a week. And for many years we were doing it daily, but they recommended we could even switch to the twice a week, but you're still collecting 7 samples minimum. So total of 852 chlorine residual samples were collected in 2025, and none of those samples dropped below 0.05, which is the adverse result. So due to all the flushing that we do in the system, it keeps the chlorine residual in the system high up, so it doesn't drop in any, especially dead-end areas where usually would drop, or even in the summer we flush more often because warm water in the system does kill the chlorine faster. So we flush more in the summer than it is in the winter. Schedule 10, which is microbiological samples and testing. We're mandated to take samples. It depends on the population. So as the population increases in the system, we have to increase our samples. So with the number of samples, because our system serves less than 100,000 population, so the number it goes by 8 samples plus 1 additional sample for every 1,000. We always do a little bit beyond what our number is in case our population, throughout the year does go, switches to the next number, we're still covered. So I always, like in the beginning of the year, review where our population stands, and then we'll go like, okay, we're gonna have at least 2 or 3 samples every week that we would take that is extra. This way it covers the system. And we have collected total of 572 E. coli and 156 heterotrophic plate count samples. The samples for total coliforms is usually 25% of how many E. coli samples we would take. Even though we do a little bit higher in that case as well. It's just to make sure that we're covered. Schedule 13, which is the chemical sampling and testing. THM, which is trihalomethane, we sample that quarterly, and we haven't had since we started sampling for this chemical. We've never had an exceedance over what the threshold in the system is. Haloacetic acid is another chemical that we test for, and same thing. We take quarterly samples. Um, One is the opposite of the other, where THM or trihalomethane, we're required to take it at the end of the distribution system. This way, it leaves more time for the water to contact. If there is any organic in the water, then it mixes with it, and then it creates this THM. So we usually sample at the end of the system, where haloacetic acid is usually sampled closer to where the feeder comes into the system. Um, Lead sampling for 2025, the system was exempt from taking any plumbing or distribution samples. Years ago, when this lead sampling started, we, as part of all the Ontario water systems, we had to sample for um, plumbing samples inside homes and distribution samples, which was directly from either hydrants or sample stations. But because our system did not exceed the threshold of lead numbers, after a number of years and number of rounds of sampling, our system was exempt. So every 3 years we don't sample for lead, and then in the fourth year we're mandated to sample for the distribution samples only. The plumbing is fully exempt. That happened like I say 5-6 years ago. So in the past, we used to call residents with older homes and ask them if we could take samples. Not right now, we don't need to do that anymore. But the distribution samples, we still collect it every 3 years. Reporting of adverse test results. In 2025, we didn't have any adverse reported to the ministry. Also, in Schedule 22 is just a full summary of water consumption that was purchased from N1 utilities with monthly average numbers as well. I've also added to this report this year the 2025 water main break data. So in 2025, we had 18 water main breaks total. And I kind of broke it down into like three categories. One category is it's five water main breaks we had. They were roughly around the same time while we had the sewer main replacement on Adams Lane, and that caused the breakage at the old water main there, which before we didn't have any breaks on that one. It kind of forced us to act on it and replace that small section of water main as part of 2025. So right now it's brand new and we shouldn't have any issues with it. The other section is Oliver Farms. So in Oliver Farms, I'd say back in many years ago, I say more 2014, 15, we used to have more breaks in that area when the system was not looped, it was more dead end. And since the Parkway project was completed, they looped the system, and now we didn't need even the auto flushers. And since then, until like a year and a half ago, the number of breaks had dropped dramatically in that area. But last winter and this past winter as well, the number went skyrocketing up again. And even though the water main is duped, but it's still aging infrastructure. So it's we've had 8 out of the 18 breaks in that area in 2025, and also since the beginning of 2026, we've had 6 out of 8 total water main breaks from the time this report was created. They were all in Oliver Farms.
I'll just jump in real quick. You turn that off, Lena? Yeah, thanks. As Ms. Petro said, yeah, the breaks really ramped up this winter. Because of that, we're going to be taking a more serious look at getting back into looking at what potentially we can do in there in the next couple of years from a water main perspective. As council knows, there's other infrastructure considerations to evaluate, but we're kind of getting to a point where we're going to, at the bare minimum, need to do the water main sometime soon. So we'll likely, between Public Works and Finance, be back sometime in the next number of months with some more information for council on that Oliver Farms situation.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Reno.
Just a question for Jonathan. When we did all that preemptive work in about 2015, 2016 out in Oliver Farms, and we were looking at more of a wastewater issue, did we have any plans drawn up at that time for water mains or any thoughts at that time? That's just my question.
Yep, thank you for the question. It was the storm water issue that we had in Oliver Farms and Heritage Estates. So we went through the EA process and it looked at both areas. We implemented the solutions in Heritage Estates and provided a storm outlet basically at Montgomery through that green space. So there's a storm outlet ready there for Oliver Farms. And then further to that, we've done a detailed design, I'll call it a 90% design in Oliver Farms for a full urbanized cross-section and incorporating the stormwater management solutions identified in the EA. And that included water main as well. However, it is, as council knows, it's quite costly to do all that. And we've applied for several grants without success, and we've just kind of held off up until now. And but we're going to kind of go through what that kind of high-end design is, I'll call it, but the bare minimum, which is just a water main replacement, and kind of a couple things in between to see what the most appropriate thing to bring back to council is.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Did you have anything else on your report? That's good. Members of council, questions or comments? Councilor Burns?
Thank you, Your Worship. To Jonathan, I think it's time that we should make some presentation to somebody with regards to this area. It's been a long time since anything's been done in there. We know it's a matter of time before we have to spend somewhere 10 or 11 million. So if this year's any indication and next year's the same and the year after, I think we should be proactive and maybe meet with a member of parliament. Here's the history. Here's what we've applied for. Here's what we've not gotten through you and the mayor, and figure out if there's anything there for us. I mean, I think the Ontario government's looking for what's called ready-made projects. This is ready to go and we're ready to go. We just need some funding from them. So I don't know if you need a motion to that or just leave it with administration to at least we should be having a meeting with Mr. Liardi so he's aware of our situation so that he can be proactive for us, I would think. That would be my suggestion. Thank you for the report, though, Lena.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions or comments? The recommendation is that the report of the manager of water and wastewater dated February 27th, 2026 regarding LaSalle Water Distribution System Summary Report for 2025 be received. Moved by Councilor Reno, support by Deputy Mayor Capata. All in favor? And that carries. Item 2 is our water wastewater billing and collection policy update.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the 2013 is, I remember that year when we approached council and we're like, we need to take basically ownership and take over the billing and water meter reading in-house. 2014, we started changing water meters. We acquired Corex at the time, the contractor, to change 3,000 meters. And in 2017, we were ready. The tower is up and running, and we started reading the meters remotely and all 11,000 accounts. So it's been successful years since then. We've captured lost revenue since then, and also we've learned a lot through that journey. And we came up with this policy back then with it was finance department as well that we put the policy together and we review it every few years. So as part of the review this year, we noticed that there is some um, addition to the policy that needs to be added, and also to strengthen our ability for more accurate billing. So as you know that we have most of our water meters are inside homes, and very small percentage is it's only 2% that are outside in water meter pits where we can access at any point. So in order to access water meters inside homes, we need homeowners to contact us and book an appointment. And throughout the process, we've come across some meters where they either stop reading. There is like the wire, the communication wire. It could be, damaged or moved, cut, or whatever. It's for many reasons. Also, we noticed some of the meters that were installed in back then, which are the digital, we call them the digital head. They basically stop recording while there is still consumption going on, and would send us the same read over and over. That was it happened, I would say, about a year and a half ago. We noticed that some meters are just showing zero consumption, and we're like, this is not making sense. So we started investigating, and we noticed, and then we attended to some of those meters, pull them out, send them for testing, and even do like a shop test in house. And the meters would just show that water is flowing through it, but it's not showing any consumption. So in these two scenarios, we between water meters that are not sending signal and that we need an appointment, plus the ones that they are sending signal but it's the same read over and over, that means it's not reading accurately. We started issuing letters, and we do also door knockers. If we have phone numbers on file, we contact the homeowner and we ask to book an appointment. The very few that we don't are we not successful in obtaining an appointment in time, we've come up with this process where we put them on surcharge on their water bill, and even on the water bill, when that surcharge amount shows up, it says contact Public Works, and there is a phone number as well. So when they see there is $200 extra on their bill, and for the 2 quarters, that $200 there, it's actually 400 for the quarter. It's refundable. So as soon as they contact us, we go fix the problem. Everything gets waived and back. If we need to estimate the account, then we would go back to the last 2 years and look at their consumption for those months. Then we would estimate it based on their consumption. We also noticed that right now we have one account that is on the non-refundable, and it's been on the non-refundable for like at least 4 quarters. And there is 5 accounts that are on the refundable surcharge. So we thought to add another measure where, okay, if they're not responding, they don't want to let us into the house, there is no way we can read the meter. So the next step would be to add a meter pit outside at the property line at the homeowner's expense, which of course we're going to communicate that to the homeowner as well. Other municipalities, what they've done, and I've reached out to them as well, is that to shut water off. The problem with shutting water off, as soon as we leave the property, an hour later they can call any plumber, they come and turn the water back on. If the meter is not recording, then we won't know. That means we're gonna have to go back and forth like at least once a week to make sure the water is still off. So we thought to add this language into the policy, which it basically reflects the current practice, and it also gives us the tools to be fair and equitable, to follow the same process, whether meter is not reading or meter is reading faulty, then we need to have a process in place in order to um, bill accurately. If there is any questions with regards to the report, to answer.
Thank you. Councillor Carrick?
Sorry, through you, Your Worship. So, what do we have? Thousands of water users out there? At least thousands. So, is this a large number that we're dealing with, or is it just a small amount of residents or businesses that are having issues? Just so I can get things in perspective for myself.
Very small amount. So we have right now, I would say, total of 6 accounts out of 11,400 accounts.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Any other questions? Recommendations that the report of the manager of water and wastewater dated March 5th, 2025 regarding the water and wastewater billing and collection policy update be received, and that the updated version of the water, wastewater billing and collection policy attached to this report be approved. Councillor Renault, Councillor Burns, all in favor? That carries. Any questions or statements? Councillor Renault?
Happy Water Day on Sunday. So I'm involved with some Cub Scouts, and I'm going to put either you or Tano on the spot because it's fun to do that once in a while. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in a cubic meter of water, there are about 1,000 liters. Is that correct? What is the cost of a cubic? I'm trying to teach the kids the difference between the cost of bottled water and the water that comes out of the tap and is tested. And what is the cost of a cubic meter of water in LaSalle? I understand that there's in and outs, but what's just the in charge?
Maybe we can get back to you on that.
That would be fine.
Through your worship, the cost to a resident is $1.21 per cubic meter
Okay.
for the first level, and then it goes up based on usage.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? None? All right, next meeting is scheduled for September 22nd, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. Meeting adjourned.